Can IVR Studio integrate with most other Voicent products to take advantage of custom call list information such as user-added columns? In this IVR Studio lesson, we will create a custom broadcast that will allow us to leave different messages determined by an entry in the broadcast by phone column. We will still use our inbound application to call in, but for this example we will create a broadcast by phone application for outbound calling. For this application we'll use a broadcast by phone root element. Select broadcast by phone. Here is how the finished call flow diagram will appear. This is what our sample call list looks like. In our broadcast by phone call list we have a type column. This is either assigned a home or a cell entry. If the call is a home call, we will play a message stating the callee's name and then play the recorded message. For the case of a cell or an answering machine, we will only play the recorded message. First we'll add a child element to the live answer element that will pass the call. Since no user interaction is required as we receive our command from the call list, a simple prompt element will do. The home or cell element doesn't do anything at all. Since root elements and their member elements can only have a single child, the home or cell element is used only for its ability to have multiple child elements. Now we'll add three prompt elements, one to handle calls with the home designation, one for calls designated cell, and one for answering machines. We'll add the attributes after. The final call flow diagram should look like this. The BBP outbound call element passes all calls determined by the Voicent gateway to be human to the live answer element, which in turn passes the call flow to our helper element, home or cell. The home element will be set up to check the value of a column in the BBP call list. If the value is equal to home, then it will execute the home element. The cell element will be set to always true. Generally, the last child of an element should be set to always true because any call flow that gets past the last child element will result in the call being dropped. Now we need to create a column variable so that we can access the type column. Before a column can be used by an element, it must first be set up in the BBP outbound call elements properties. There is a tab in the BBP element that did not appear in the outbound call element. Select the broadcast by phone column tab. Let's add a column named type. Now we can fill in the attributes. Here we will use the if condition is met option to compare the text in the type column to the word home. When we created the column type in the BBP element, we actually created a variable that holds the text that is in the cell of the current call's type column. This is updated before every call. Open the define dialog to set the entry condition. In the add broadcast by phone column box, select the type column. Click to add the column variable. Now we just have to compare the type variable with the text home. For this, we'll use the double equals comparison operator. Now the entry condition is set up in the home element. Now we'll add the message prompt. For this message we will add three prompts. The message will flow as follows. First, a text-to-speech prompt stating, "This call is for." Next, a text-to-speech prompt that reads the broadcast by phone name column. And finally, we'll play the recorded WAV file. First we'll add the predefined TTS text. The broadcast by phone element has built-in columns for the name and phone number, which are accessible by system variables. The current name column's text will always be available in the VG called name system variable. We can use the name variable in conjunction with text-to-speech to pronounce the callee's name. Select VG called name. Make sure Use Text-to-Speech is selected and click the OK button. Now we will add the WAV file message. For this project I've been keeping all my utility files in a folder named C Call Lists. The message file will be called recordedmessage.wave. Click OK. Before IVR Studio will allow us to add the audio file to the call stack, it must exist. In the Broadcast by Phone bin folder, there is a sample wave file. Copy it to the call lists folder. Now let's rename the sample message to recordedmessage.wave. Now we should be able to add the wave to the call stack. This is how the live answer home message should look. Now we'll set up the cell prompt to only play the message. This element will not compare the column typed text to cell. It will just assume that if it is not home, it is cell. That way, if for some reason the column is left blank, the message will play rather than dropping the call. Select Always True. The play message element is exactly the same as the cell element, except that since it derives from the answering machine element, it accepts all input. The message prompt will be a wave file. There is only one small change that must be made into Lesson 4 before this will work. In the record message element, you will need to change the path of the new wave file to C call lists recorded file.wave. This ends the IVR Studio lesson on triggering custom broadcasts from a user-created BBP column. In the next lesson, we will create a Java method that IVR Studio will use to scan our call list folder for .voc broadcast by phone call lists, then prompt the inbound caller to choose which list will be broadcast.